Hello, Kate. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'm
Hello there.
excited to jump in because I know that you like to talk about gut health. I love to talk about gut health, and it's so linked to sustainable weight management as well as so many other things. So, just to get started, can you tell everyone about yourself and your background and where you'll be speaking to?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a nutritionist. Also a herbalist. So I do like to sort of combine the two. I'm also trained in sort of fitness coaching, life coaching. So I bring it all. I bring it all together. Um, I'm also trained as a specifically holistic weight loss coach. So that's one of the areas that I really focus on, and also sort of in skin health, which it's a very specific niche, but really it's heavily linked to all areas of health and well-being. So yeah,
Perfect. Yeah. Isn't it true that everything's connected? That's why I love like talking
absolutely.
about holistic wellness. I'm like, you can't just do any little part if you're not doing all of it. So thank you. That's great. So I guess specifically talking about gut health, tell us a little bit more. And I know a lot about this, but not everyone on the summit might. Like, how is gut health? Well, let's start with what is gut health, and then if you could link it to our weight, like what is the connection there?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously it's a massive topic. I mean, the whole health of your digestion, we're talking the whole sort of length of the digestive tract. It really starts when food gets into your stomach. Low stomach acid is such a common problem that so many people have these days. That then has that knock-on effect, because your food isn't obviously getting digested properly, you're not getting the proper nutrition out of it, but also it's really going to cause this gut dysbiosis, which is the major problem that we talk about, where your bacteria is imbalanced. And the whole sort of health of the microbiome is, such a key with all areas of health, and in particular weight loss, because it's often sort of underestimated. But I mean, the vast majority of the cells in your body, they are not human. They are the microbes that should be living in your gut. So it's really, really a huge area. If you don't have enough of the good, good bacteria, as we like to call them, and if you've got too many of the bad ones, then the end result, obviously, it's going to be things like chronic inflammation. You're going to get poor nutrient absorption, and also you're going to get massive food cravings. So, a lot of those bacteria, they're the ones that are craving the sugar, and basically they're hijacking, your own sort of hormones and making you crave the wrong kinds of food. So yeah, gut health is just fantastically important, and so much of our immune system is in our gut. So it's so important for health in general.
That makes a lot of sense. And I totally agree with that. It's connected to everything. They call it like our second brain. So it's doing a lot there. So what are some basic starting level strategies for someone to start taking care of their gut health to help with their overall weight management or just health in general?
Yeah, I think the very first thing, and it's something that's so simple everyone forgets about it, is just to chew your food properly.
I've never heard that come up, so that's amazing. I thought you were going to say drink water.
Yeah, I mean, that is something. But honestly, the amount of people who are just bolting food down, so super fast, and not paying attention to even what they're eating. Taking time over meals, and even before you eat, because the actual digestive process, it actually starts before you eat. It's when you smell the food, your digestive enzymes start getting ready. So just taking a pause, taking a bit of time over the meals, and then really chewing the food properly, that all helps. Hydration, you mentioned, that is super important. Ideally not drinking the water while you're actually eating the food, but drinking lots of water, the rest of the time, that is so important as well. Stress is a massive one as well. We don't digest food properly when we're stressed. That also causes a lot of inflammation. So that's really important as well, trying to reduce our stress levels. And, if we can cut down on that sort of processed food and get more fiber. so important for gut health. That really is.
Yeah, thank you. And I couldn't agree more about fiber. Actually, for my session for the summit, talk all about fiber because it's such a basic thing, but it helps so much with regulating your blood sugar and your metabolism and things like that. So our gut health shot has 5 grams of soluble fiber in it, this little guy. So I'm a huge believer in that. Okay, great. Thanks. Those are some easy like strategies just to start with. What about inflammation? Because that's something that comes up a lot when it comes to gut health. What is the link between inflammation and weight management, and what exactly is that?
Yeah. So chronic inflammation is something that so many people are suffering from now. And if you have problems with gut health, one of the things you hear talk about, a lot these days is the sort of leaky gut syndrome, which for a long time doctors were still, insisting wasn't really a thing, but they've kind of, had to admit it really is. If your gut has become sort of damaged, essentially, almost like you've got little holes have been punched through, and undigested food is then able to get into the bloodstream, that obviously causes an immune response because your immune system is saying, this shouldn't be here. What is it? I'm going to attack it. And that causes chronic inflammation. Now, of course, inflammation, that leads to all sorts of problems. So, for example, it throws off insulin. That becomes a vicious cycle because too much insulin also causes inflammation. And if you've got high blood sugar, that causes inflammation as well. So it becomes a vicious cycle and it increases. Of course, if you've got high levels of insulin, it's going to cause more fat to be stored. So it definitely impacts weight loss. Fat cells themselves actually cause inflammation as well because they release we call inflammatory cytokines. So the more fat cells you have, the more the inflammation is actually going to increase. So again, you end up in this vicious cycle. And the inflammation then, obviously, because your immune system is now overstimulated, that has then shown that can impact, autoimmune disorders as well. So it can have serious consequences down the line.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense. That sounds scary. I guess, like, how do you manage that? Like, what do you do to keep it in check?
Yeah. So one of the most important things is to, obviously look at your gut health because that is such a big cause of it. So food sensitivities can be a big one. They're so common now. You hear them about things like gluten and dairy and so on. There are all sorts of strategies you can use. There are tests that you can get, to look at that kind of thing. You could also look at, elimination diets and so on. That can be a really big one to find out, if there is something like that you might need to cut out. Again, stress is a huge one because we know that massively increases inflammation. Also, exercise is important. If you're doing really long sort of cardio workouts, that's increasing the stress on the body. So again, exercise is great, but we want to make sure we're not overdoing it. Also things like strict dieting, you have to be careful. Some people go on these sort of starvation diets, and of course that puts the body under a huge amount of stress, and your body is going to think you're starving, and actually it's going to increase the inflammation and increase fat storage. So yeah, we have to be very careful when people are going on diets that they're, doing it in a healthy way.
Yes, totally. No, that makes a lot of sense. And we talked to another one of our speakers about the issues with diets and when you're swinging back and forth, how it can cause all sorts of problems. But that's funny because I think a lot of people, when thinking about weight management, jump directly to the diets. So it sounds like you're not a big fan of that.
No, I mean, the trouble is there's always some fad diet or other that comes up and people, oh yes, I'll just cut all this out and lose weight. And so often they do cause rapid weight loss, but they're not sustainable. And obviously, they can actually do more harm than good, because you're always fighting against your body's sort of natural biology. And ideally, we don't want to do that. We want to work with it.
Yeah. Okay, great. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, tell us about the other big area of gut health that I've talked a lot about is the connection to your brain. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a second brain. And even if you don't believe it's a second brain. It's definitely connected to your first brain. So tell us about that, and what is the connection to weight management?
Yeah, absolutely. I think some people, underestimate the power that your gut has over your brain. So, for example, an obvious thing is food cravings. So, for example, if you've got the yeast, like Candida albicans, it lives, in everybody's gut in a healthy amount. That's absolutely fine. But if it overgrows, it craves sugar. And that actually, because of the connection to your brain, that leads you craving sugar. So it can actually hijacks, your own hormones and therefore your own, thoughts and feelings, essentially, which is kind of scary when you think about it like that. But actually, it is true. And when our gut is happy, we feel happy, essentially, because the majority of serotonin, which is one of the hormones that makes us feel happy, is produced in our gut. So if our gut bacteria are suffering, that's when we get the cravings, and people actually become depressed, when their gut is unhealthy. Actually, when our gut bacteria are feeling good, they're going to make more serotonin, which means we're going to feel good. So you shouldn't underestimate that connection. And so often people feel that food cravings, they feel guilty about it. Oh, it's a lack of willpower. It's, it's all of this. But when you think about it, there are billions of organisms living in your gut that are sending you messages, essentially. So, you really shouldn't feel bad if, your willpower is lacking, because, that's a lot of organisms that are craving that sugar and that are making you crave it,
Yeah, totally. That's really creepy that your gut can like influence your thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in order to manage that, then is it really like back to the previous strategies that you were talking about?
Yeah. The good thing is, all these foods we're told are healthy, that is what our gut microbiome craves. And of course, the so-called bad bacteria, they tend to thrive on processed sugar, processed foods, dehydrated fats, all of the things that we know we shouldn't be eating. So, and as I say, the good news is it does work both ways. Once you really start to cultivate, a healthy microbiome, they crave these healthy foods. So what you tend to find, people often find they get more of a craving for fruits and vegetables and less for donuts once their gut microbiome becomes healthier.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So it's kind of, taking overall care. And again, we talked about this with another speaker too. You can't expect any fast fixes, right? You just kind of take overall care and then wait for the benefits to kind of trickle down, if you will.
Absolutely, yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about easy strategies that people can do in their day-to-day, whether it's recipes or habits, because I think sometimes these things can be very overwhelming for people. Like, where do I start? So tell us if there's any, just general strategies.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, let's say, I mentioned before, one of the main things is just carving out a little bit of time. So many people are always in a rush when they're making dinner and they feel they don't have time. But even if it's, carving out half an hour, everyone can find that in their day, whether it's less phone scrolling, less watching Netflix, whatever it is. Eating your meal. The other things you can do, obviously, planning your meals in advance is a great idea. And, I know not meals.
You were breaking up a little bit. Can you repeat that part again?
Yeah, sure. So whether it's sort of, if you're batch cooking vegetables, for example, they often come in, large amounts. So if you cook up a huge amount, freeze portions, it's much, much easier. You can also buy a lot of, pre-prepared bagged frozen veggies, frozen fruits as well. They're great for just, if you can't be bothered, shove something in, whisk up a quick, veggie soup or whatever it might be. But definitely, planning out meals in advance is a great idea. because in the moment we tend not to make the healthiest choices, especially if we wait until we're sort of starving to go into the kitchen, and we just grab the quickest, meal available. And to help with meal planning as well, I mean, we always use this idea of the sort of completing 3 rule, where you try and make sure that each meal has a balance of a carbohydrate that's preferably high in fiber, a healthy fat, and protein. Because if we're just snacking on something like very processed carbohydrates, we just tend to feel hungry again very quickly. So ensuring we get that fat and that protein into the meal, we're more likely to actually feel full. And it's going to be great for our gut health as well.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's helpful. Thank you. So if people are interested in learning more about what you do, or, just reading more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, sure. So obviously I have my website, journeytojoycoaching.co.uk. I'm also over on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel where I put out videos. I've just started my podcast as well. And I'm currently working on my book as well. So I'm hoping that will be out soon.
That's exciting. Thank you so much. Well, we'll all keep an eye out for you. And thanks so much for sharing your tips and tricks.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.